TNA Wrestling crossed that line again as we're just a few hours away from Sacrifice. I apologize. I am not feeling very well at all today. I was umming and ahhing whether to put this out, but considering the pay-per-view is just in a few hours and we're going to be reviewing that as well, I felt as if I needed to come on here and do the review of the final impact before Sacrifice. And there's a few more questions now that need to be answered, but we'll get straight to the action. This week. Mustafa Ali, of course, with Order 4 at ringside. They took on BDE, and he was obviously with Rich Swan. He's Mustafa Ali is just such a reliable workhorse for TNA. He really, really is. I don't think there's anything he can't do. And you know, anytime they kind of want something, he's Mr. Reliable, and I think he was ideal for BDE, someone that can, you know, push him towards that next level and get him there. And it's kind of like a perfect opponent, a bit like Nick Nemeth for the sell-in factor as well in this, and leading by Rich Swan as well, who definitely would be able to help him out. And perfect opponent, perfect chemistry. Solid start for this match, and both of these two were fantastic. But it was Mustafa Ali. We calls this with the dance with the devil, which is a bit like the end of days from Baron Corbin actually, and that gets the victory. But after the match, all the four start ganging up on Rich Swan. He gets choked out by Jason Hotch, and out comes Trey Miguel. He makes the save. He took out Special Agent Zero, which is no mean feat, although he did use the championship to do that. He did also have the odds stacked against him. I really apologize. This is going to struggle to get this one done today, but I need to. Um, The odds were stacked against him all the four. Finally, the numbers game caught up with him. But then Jada Stone, she hit a top rope Hurricane Rana, was picture perfect. The crowd absolutely loved it. And then when the great hands went to clothesline her, she dropped down to both knees and they both went to the outside. And it was fantastic. And then she does get set up for the choke slam. But Miguel makes the save, and ultimately they stand tall over Order 4. But it was a great opening contest, and one that BDE will certainly feel the benefit of. But of course, we go to Sacrifice tonight, where the mixed tag team match between Tasha Steelz and Mustafa Ali and Trey Miguel and Jada Stone will take place. Now, Mike Santana has got a bit of a problem. Um, He was calling Macklin out for a fight, but Dario Ray has basically said any violence prior to the match from him, and he would be stripped of the TNA World Championship, and which is and removed to the tournament and removed from a tournament to crown a new one. Should he be stripped, which is crazy, really, when you think about it. But nevertheless, he was with Leon Slater as well, and the more I see these two, and I know they're teaming up tonight at Sacrifice, the more that I see it, the more I believe Leon and may decide to opt for option C very, very soon. Back in ring action, and it was Jeff Hardy and Brian Myers, two old war horses, getting in the ring here. And this was your standard, you know what you're going to get with these two, and they absolutely delivered on it. Jeff Hardy did get the win, but it was after that the interesting bits started happening, and this is where it poses more questions for tonight. So they got beat down by the system. The Righteous come out to make the save, and everyone took the fights into the crowd apart from Bear Bronson. And the reason for that, Moose, his music started playing, and that brings up, you know, an interesting bit, 'cause we're going to get to that match in a minute. I did love the transition when they were all fighting amongst themselves and Bronson was left in the ring and out comes Moose and it got us straight to the next match, which is great. I am a firm believer that the righteous can't be trusted, and I have a theory because Matt Hardy was attacked later on in Impact, and we'll get onto it in a minute. But we, excuse me, as you can hear. But right after that, we go into the aforementioned Moose and Bear Bronson, and they tore the house down. Absolute match for the night. This was brilliant. We've talked about it. We've had Eddie Edwards talk about it. Go and check that out in the playlist below. How great Bronson actually is, and the same with Moose. He gets a lot of unnecessary hate, but he's more than just a big man. And once again, he proved it tonight. And on this match, it was quite interesting because the system did come back to try and get some revenge. However, they were stopped in their tracks by the Atlanta Falcons, some of Moose's old teammates, which, of course, allowed Moose to hit the spear on Bear Bronson and pick up the victory. Fantastic. Now, here's where we get some more interesting. Over the last few weeks, we have seen Rosemary and Ali, and this one was called Wrath. And but before we get to that, Myra Slade wraps up her interview with Gia Miller, and her phone transforms into a page displaying the instructions: follow the white rabbit, which she sees that white rabbit and follows her into the room with a staircase. Interesting times, but we still got more from the aforementioned White Rabbit a little bit later on, and another interesting return. Don't know if it was a one-time thing for TNA, but we do get another one. The system weren't happy with their loss, and they took out Matt Hardy backstage, and it was quite interesting because they addressed that they were gonna, you know, win their matches. The main event this evening was Leon and Mike, of course. Of course, Leon and Mike ain't teaming up at Sacrifice. Are teaming up tonight. Apologies. Um, but once the system had left, we saw the Righteous pop up from a flight of stairs, and they let out a cryptic laugh. Now, I mentioned Matt Hardy was attacked, so when I get into that now, Matt Hardy was attacked. I'm sorry if this is all over the place. I really don't feel great today, so my apologies. Hopefully tomorrow's review will be a lot better. Um, But Matt Hardy was attacked, and from that attack, he's now not cleared to compete tonight at Sacrifice. So, with that being said, Vincent has stepped up to team with Jeff Hardy. Yeah, go figure that one. Are they trying to get Jeff Hardy away from Matt Hardy? Who took out Matt Hardy? I don't think it was a system. I think it was the Righteous. And I've been saying it all along, but we'll find out. I've also been saying all along that Alicia Edwards would rejoin Eddie Edwards, and he was quite coy about a woman joining the system, a new woman joining the system, when I pressed him on that on the interview, which you can see below. And of course, over here in the UK, TNA is available on TNA Plus. Get the app downloaded, get subscribed. $9.99 a month gives you everything, all the impacts, all the special shows like Sacrifice, your bigger shows like Bound for Glory and Slammiversary, and access to the archives, obviously on AMC and AMC Plus over in the good old US of A and Sports Center 360 in Canada. Six knockout action next. Jody Fret, Myla Grace, and Hardy Hudson take on Tessa Blanchard, Myla Moore, and Victoria Crawford. Um, I've not seen Hardy Hudson win a match yet, I don't think, which is quite annoying. They didn't win this one either. Myla Grace got hit with a buzzsaw single arm DDT from Tessa Blanchard. I'm hoping what they're doing with this is building up Tessa for a big singles run at the back end of 2026. I'd like to think going into Slammiversary or Bound for Glory that Tessa Blanchard will be in contention for the Knockouts Championship. That's my belief. That perhaps they're even testing her by putting her in these matches just to, make sure, pay her dues, even though she doesn't need to pay the dues, if that makes sense. But this was a win for Tessa and Co. Good match, actually, quite solid. No real complaints, no issues with it. It was just, I would say it was just a standard run-of-the-mill knockouts match with no real meaning, really, at the moment. But like I said, hopefully Tessa will start to transition into the knockouts championship picture as we roll forward into 2026. Now, I said to you earlier on, we had Wrath, which was another story in the Rosemary and Ali stuff that's been going on. And a good old friend of the show dropped by this week on RAF. She needed a favor from somebody, but she knew that this was going to be a difficult one. That somebody walked through with a mask on, and it turned out to be Crazy Steve. You can see that interview in the special interview section below. Great to see Crazy Steve on the television. She seeks answers from Crazy Steve. They do a deal, kind of. I think Crazy Steve's wanted closure from this. We saw Ali again. She was like, "Hi, I'm Ali." And he was like, "Oh, that's obvious." But hopefully they got some closure there. But we've had it. We've had Johnny Fair play. We've had Raven involved, and now we've had Crazy Steve involved in this, which has been quite interesting to say the least. Who's next, and what is the outcome of Wrath, or what is the outcome of what Rosemary's actually doing on TNA? We'll have to wait and see. Brad Attitude was in the ring against Eric Young. This was just a showcase match for Eric to look strong ahead of his match with Leon Slater at Sacrifice. Brad got a little bit of offense in this, but yeah, this was always going to be about Eric Young showing you why he's in contention from the Knockouts division. And of course, the Spike Power Driver from that did indeed get it done. Will Eric Young dispose of Leon Slater, or will he cleanse Leon Slater at Sacrifice? Well, one way to find out. Download TNA Plus here in the UK. 9.99 gets you everything. So make sure you definitely you're missing out. Honestly, I say this every week, and I really mean it. You are missing out of everything. What a surprise, though! Another big surprise this week on TNA. Buff the Stuff Bagwell comes out, and again, you can see our exclusive interview with Buff Bagwell in the special interview section below on there. Make sure that you do. And he had a short-lived TNA stunt, very early doors uh, on the company, and obviously we know the issues that Buff Bagwell's been having. His amputation looked fantastic. It was lovely to see him, but he's interrupted by Frankie Kazarian, the king of TNA, and he was even mocking, say Buff lost some stuff, which is referring to his amputated leg. But Elijah was there. The lights go off, the lights come back on, and Kazarian is nowhere to be seen. But Elijah did say he'll take care of Kazarian, but Impact was all about Buff Bagwell, and Buff Bagwell wanted to walk with Elijah, which was great. Mention the match that was added tonight to Sacrifice. Jeff Hardy and Vincent will, of course, take on Brian Myers and Cedric Alexander. Santino reluctantly accepted that from the Righteous, but nevertheless, he did indeed accept that that match would happen. Danny Luna with an absolute fire promo this week on Impact. Apologies again for my issues. She's having her opportunity that she never lost and she never got. Obviously, visa issues put pay to that. But she already said she's already took care of Lei Ying Lee. She's beaten her once. Adriana Grace is a fluke, and it's going to be Doomsday at Sacrifice. I really hope Danny walks out with that championship. I really, really do. I think it's her time. It's not necessarily now or never, but you've got to understand that at some point you've got to pull the trigger, and you've got to pull that trigger on Danny Luna. So the card for Sacrifice tonight, Ryan MF BDE on the countdown. So BDE will be winning that one. Jody Fret, Tessa Blanchard. I would assume Tessa will win that again on the countdown to Sacrifice. Leon Slater, Eric Young. I'm not going to go into these matches because obviously the podcast prediction league is in full swing. Sorry, Gruesome with Cape Vape. You were late with your picks. And you were at the top. You were joint of us. Elijah and the Hometown Man against AJ Francis and Kazarian. Ariana Grace, Danny Luna, Lei Ying Lee for the Knockouts Championship. Miguel and Jada Stone versus Tasha Steelz and Mustafa Ali. That's going to be incredible. Moose and Eddie Edwards. Is this where Alicia turns and realigns with the system? Who knows? Myra Slade and Elena Black in a no DQ. Now, we didn't see anything of Elena Black this week. Did see Myra Slade, though. And she may have some issues going on. with Rosemary, perhaps. Jeff Hardy and Vincent, of course, versus Brian Myers and Cedric Alexander. Will Jeff Hardy and Vincent get the win? I say yes, they will. And I know that's not a prediction. Excuse me, in our prediction league. Then, of course, Santana and Macklin for the championship. But main event time on TNA, and it was Mike Santana and Leon Slater versus the System. Oh, there was some great storyline progression here. Macklin's running near the end of this match to set up the finish was so well done. Um, and of course, the interesting bit from that was Macklin's running at the end of the match caused Eddie Edwards to hit the Boston Knee Party on Mike Santana and pinned the TNA World Champion. Now, of course, Eddie Edwards has a Call Your Shot briefcase that hasn't been spoken about in a while. We've spoke about option C, Leon Slater. We spoke about Steve Macklin. We've even had Kazarian in the conversation. What we haven't had in the conversation is Eddie Edwards. And perhaps Eddie, after he potentially beats Moose Sacrifice, will go on to cash in the shot at the opportunity. Who knows? Who knows? But strong impact tonight. Story driven, brilliant. Multiple angles moving forward into the pay-per-view and moving forward into those next set of impact tapings as well, which I think is brilliant that they're doing that. Lots of developments, obviously, with the system. We've got the Righteous and the Hardy stuff going on as well. When's that going to switch? Will Alicia Edwards finally rejoin the system? We've got that. You know, who's next for Schumann? Santana walks out champion. Who's next for him? He's got a target on his back. Could even be Leon Slater himself. But don't forget, all the action goes down tonight. Sacrifice live, TNA Plus for you all over here in the UK. Get it downloaded, get it subscribed, get your 9.99 out of your pocket. It's payday weekend, folks. What better way to do it than to get yourself some TNA Plus and watch a fantastic show in the early hours of the morning, or yeah, that will be me. But you can watch it anytime, of course, and make sure that you do that. And we wrap up another Impact with obviously following us, HTT Buckle everywhere. I would like to apologise again for me not feeling particularly well for doing this review. It was touch and go whether it was going to be done, but I did decide to get it done. So apologies for my coughing. Hopefully, it's not going to be as bad tomorrow for the Sacrifice review. But please do join me from that and all the other interviews. Independent Showcase Scotland is starting recording next week with my lovely co-host, Miss Fiona Lochran. Myself and Michael Jolly, our new co-host, will be reviewing the first ever Clash of Champions from WCW. You can go and check that out on WCW's YouTube page. It is fantastic to go and see some of the old wrestling stuff on there. It's absolutely fantastic. So make sure you do that as well and join us. Maybe this week in wrestling, we're back on Sunday. We'll see if David can make it. If he can, we'll be back then and back tomorrow for Sacrifice. Join us then. But until then, everybody, cross the line. I managed to get that out right. Stay safe and, of course, goodbye.